Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Region 12 Board of Education to order. Thank you all for coming. I will take attendance. Marty Ford is here. Valerie?
I am.
Tony?
No.
Alan? Yes. Fran?
Yep.
Greg?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Michelle?
Here.
Emily?
Here.
I'm here. Kelly?
Yes.
And Mike?
Here.
All right, we're all here. Thank you. Item 2, consent agenda. The only item on the consent agenda tonight is the minutes of our November 5, 2012 meeting. I'll ask if there's any comments. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be adopted by acclamation. Is there anyone who wants it removed from the consent agenda? All right, then the consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Item 3, opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items. I know that we have a fairly large crowd here tonight, and I assume there's going to be some comment on agenda item number 6 regarding the flexible schedule. What I would ask is, since the meeting is being taped, I'm going to ask that anybody who wants to speak to address the board, would they stand at the lectern, because it's easier for the taper. Instead of having to keep turning the camera all the time, it would just be easier to tape everyone. I'd ask you to just state your name and what town you're from. I want to keep it within reason. You know, I'm not going to limit you to 3 minutes or anything like that, but I'm not going to let people go on for 10 minutes. A lot of us have attended the programs that the superintendent has put on. Most of us, speaking for myself, have received a lot of emails from a lot of parents. So I know that there's a lot of concern out there, and people want to be heard, and that's fine. But this is our meeting, so I just want to keep it within reason. And I would ask that there be no personal comments, personal disparagement, complaints. I just won't permit that. All right, so is there anyone who would like to address this? Ma'am. Would you go to the lectern, please? Ma'am, I'm sorry, yes, you're here. Just state your name and what town you're from.
No speaker, that's good. Helen Tracy, I'm from Washington, and my concern with the schedule is that as a teacher of 28 years, we just went New Milford to block, and as a math teacher, I fought it tooth and nail, but I love it now. It's incredible. I can do so much more in-depth teaching and get into the curriculum and stuff like that, and I love it. So, you know, from a personal point, for teaching 27 years in the 45 to 1 hour minute time chunks, and when you have a 7 period where kids are taking 6 classes, they're on a treadmill from the minute they get into the classroom, from the minute they get into school, from the minute they leave, they're on a treadmill. Where the block leaves them a little bit more open time, where they're a little bit less stressed. So I oppose this. And one reason I oppose it is that there's been no study. I know when we switched, and I know when other school districts have switched, there's been a study where you've had teachers, parents, students form a committee and really go around and look at other schedules in the area to see what might fit, and if something else fits better, then fine. But just to have, in my opinion, just to have one person propose something and not really look into that. There was a very important point brought up by one of the students at the last meeting I attended, that right now your teachers teach 6 academic classes per year, and in the block they'll only be teaching 5. So I don't really see how this can be a cost savings if that is the case. One other thing is, my middle schooler said to me, you know, if we do this because they want to align both of them, we're going to lose our D1. And apparently D1 is where the kids get to make up work, go get extra help for something or whatnot. And that's a really important time for middle schoolers, because they don't really have the ability to stay after school like high schoolers do and get a ride home. And you know, they're on the bus schedule and whatnot. And that, I know my middle schooler uses that time and utilizes it well. So to lose that, I think, is a tough situation there. I know that Dr. Constantine, you've said that one thing is to share teachers between the schools. What I'd like to know is how many of your middle school teachers are certified through 12th grade. And I'm not really sure sharing aides or paras or the specials is really going to save you that much money as far as the certified staff. And I'm not sure how many of your middle school staff would be certified through 12th grade. So that's, I mean, those are my main points. I don't want to go on. I have a lot more I could say, but again, I really would hope that the board would really consider a committee to study a schedule change. I think there's a lot of money involved in a schedule change that you might not realize, and that you need to look at.
Thank you. I just want to make one other comment for future people who are going to speak. This is not a time to engage, that we're not going to engage in a discussion here. I know the lady asked questions, and that's fine, but I just want to hear your comments when the board will discuss this thing at the appropriate, later on the agenda. Is there anyone else who would like to address this? Yes, sir.
You know, we couldn't hear. I don't know, is there a microphone there? Is it turned
No.
on?
It's not turned on. There's no microphone.
There's no microphone.
Oh, that's right, there isn't any. I'm blind. I was on the board when we
Your
initially...
name and your
Oh,
town.
Pete Tagley, Washington, Connecticut.
Thank
I
you.
was one of the board members when we initiated block scheduling. Some of us supported it, some of us didn't. And one of the questions, I do have a question, because I remember block scheduling as, in the end, adding FTEs rather than maybe subtracting FTEs. And I wonder if we can ask the superintendent, from her perspective, coming here new and fresh, does block scheduling, in the end, to run a full block schedule, wind up adding FTEs to the schedule?
Pete, I'm not going to get back.
You want to get back, Bob? No?
She's
Okay.
going to, Dr. Cosentino will make a presentation. I'm sure she's taking notes, and she'll address
Okay,
it.
well, that's the question I wanted to ask anyway, because when we were involved with it, many of us felt that you wound up with subsequently more FTEs. And as you know, when you get to the budgetary process, one of the issues is we live in a very small school district with declining student enrollment and costs going up, and people are always finding ways, how do we get the budget under control? And the amount of FTEs you have in the system is one way you get the budget under control. And one of the things I would recommend to the board tonight, this is the 7th superintendent that I've been at board meetings with and been involved with as a 10-year board member. The last superintendent we had, Dr. Storm, went on the educational channel one day, and I was thumbing through the channels, and he was on. And he went through a number of problems that the board, he knew that this region had. Why he never brought them to the board, I don't know. I don't know what it was in his nature, or what he felt about you members of the board, that he felt whether it was fruitless to bring it before you, or why he didn't want to discuss the issues, some of which are coming up now. I don't know what his issue was. He was a very quiet, unassuming superintendent. Now, all of a sudden, after having lived through 4 or 5 years of his demeanor, we now have a superintendent that's now completely the opposite. And it's a shock, in a sense, to have someone speak so vociferously about issues. And I'm wondering, tonight is a very important night for her, because if she doesn't have the support of a significant number of board members, why did you hire her? And my guess is you'll lose her. So I think tonight the issue, the big issue before you as board members, is this superintendent going to be here next year, and do you want her here next year? And is the issues she's raising before you, are you willing to stand by them? Because Dr. Storm never raised these issues, and the superintendents that didn't last here, Dr. Carmelek, Chuck Sweetman, addressed issues that the board wanted addressed, but gave up after 3, 4, 5 years because they found the communities very difficult to deal with. The superintendents that have been here the longest, like a Dr. Storm, we've had superintendents stay here longer than him, they dealt with this system, lived with this system, accepted the system as it was, and didn't make too many waves. Now we have a wave, and the question is, are you going to support that wave? And that's the real issue we have tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address this? Yes, sir.
Chris Jellin, Sherman resident. As you know, Sherman is in a unique situation that we are offered high school choice. Personally, my family did not make the decision to choose Chippewa lightly. One of the merits to coming here was block scheduling. Excuse me. We heard continually the same message repeated from initially your recruiter during multiple presentations. We heard it from the principal as we were invited up for an open house. We heard it from the guidance counselor when we came for course selection. It seems to me slightly misleading that 2-3 months into the school year, there's proposed change to date block scheduling off the table. I happen to be a selectman in the town of Sherman, and the only reason I disclose that is because I want you to understand that I am, I understand that the need for the board to continually reevaluate its current situation. I ask, rather demand that from my own Board of Education. And obviously, part of that is always looking at the dollars. So when this board deliberates whether to take block scheduling from the table, I want you to consider the fact that the Sherman residents that attend the school represent about $250,000 of tuition annually. And so that should be part of your discussion as you go forward. And that's really all I want to say, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, in the back.
My name is Deborah Chin, and I'm a resident of Roxbury. I didn't plan to speak tonight, but I did. I thought it over, and I thought I would like to make these comments. I was in town, and we've been in town for close to 30 years. I've been an educator for over 30 years. And one of the things that struck me was that a number of years ago, or actually several times, system has been confronted with the idea of consolidating. And the public, the parents in this town and the public made it very loud and clear a number of times that they did not support consolidating our public schools, our elementary schools. I imagine that some of you were elected to this board because of your support of having the 3 schools. Now, we have a lot of people in the public who are very concerned about the changes that Dr. Cosentino is thinking about making to the block schedule. My son graduated, he was the first graduating class that graduated with block scheduling. My daughter is now a junior in high school. And I guess my thought is that the people in town have spoken very loudly and clearly about the consolidation issue. Now we have a lot of parents and students here who are very concerned about the changes that are being made, and I hope that you will please listen to the voices of the public. I know Dr. Cosentino has come, she has some ideas, she wants to make some changes. I guess the public and the students in the school are asking that we devote a little bit more time to exploring what those changes are actually going to mean. And so I hope that you will listen to the voices of the people and the students that go to Chapag and take our views and their views and concerns into consideration before you vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Anyone else like to address the board? All right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening. I'm sorry I was a little late. This is just a...
I'm sorry, ma'am. Would you state your name and what town you're from,
Sorry,
please?
beg your pardon. Sarah Taylor, Bridgewater. I have 2 children here, sophomore and senior. I'm speaking on behalf of the Parent Council. We're asking for time and due diligence. There's not been enough time to review information in order to make an informed decision at this time. And we ask that if the board votes at all, you vote to keep the block for 1 year, to give the administrators time and opportunity to review the block and the new mandates and come up with recommendations. I just have a few points that we'd like to put forward. It took 3 years of research and 1 year of planning to implement the block. There has been no process to this decision because there has not been time. There is enough time to develop alternative options to the 2 that are on the table. There has not been enough time for due diligence on the part of the superintendent, the Board of Education, or the administration before making such a decision. This is too big of an issue and will have long-lasting effects to decide on without more exploration. With more time, the parties involved will have the opportunities to be involved in the process democratically. Involvement will create buy-in by the involved parties, administrators, faculty, students, and parents. Time is needed to discover the cost savings of the options. That's the end. Just wanted to make sure that voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Diane Decker, and I live in New Preston. And I'm coming from an emotional, I'm not a teacher, so this is an emotional issue for me because I love this town. And the old saying, if it ain't broke, why fix it? And the thing is, there are so many things that are broke. Our roof is broke, the water system is broke, and our elementary schools are empty. And I find it ironic that this is the issue that we're trying to fix, and yet it's not broke. And I think this issue has divided these three towns more than they've ever been divided before. And this is a time when we need to come together so that we can increase our enrollment and we don't lose our Sherman families and we don't lose our elementary school families. But now we're all divided and people are arguing in the grocery store and they're arguing at the tennis court. And this has been a real divisive issue. And I'm sad because it's a great school and there are so many other things that are broke that can be fixed. And this is not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Karen Buell, Washington.
You need to speak up, please.
Karen Buell, New Preston, Connecticut. I have 3 children in Chippewa High School, and I have 1 in kindergarten. I can speak from experience that how well my children have done when they started block scheduling in high school. I see how they did with the regimen in middle school and how they have improved intellectually, how they've learned so much more from their teachers in block scheduling. I can't even tell you as a parent how much that's meant to me to see how they have grown. I believe that Chippewa, starting the block scheduling, we were the pioneer, and a lot of the communities around us have switched to block scheduling. I read an article about a year and a half ago from Brookfield Patch from, I believe it was the superintendent, Jean Salone, had mentioned that the 2 years that they have had block scheduling in Brookfield, that their CAP scores went up so much, and they have improved, and she attributed it all to their recent change to block scheduling. And I don't know what type of data there is if you take that block scheduling away from the children, what's going to happen to the block scheduling. And as a parent, I'm very, to their CAP scores, as a parent, I'm concerned about that. I heard about the virtual high school, that might, it's going to be offered to 20 seats to start out is going to be offered, and I think the virtual high school sounds wonderful, but if it's only offered to 20 children, you're affecting our entire school. And to offer 20 kids an opportunity to have a seat at an AP class, I don't think that it balances out. And if right now, and if parents want their children to have an AP class, you can pay, I know it's a cost, I know a $500 cost, per seat for this class. And I think that if that's something that a parent is willing to do and that they really want for their child, they will pay for the course. And that is offered now with this current schedule. The block scheduling, kids can still get that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Huber from Roxbury. I've sent you all letters, so I will be brief here. I just want to reiterate that my deep desire for you to consider here is time. Only 3 of you were able to attend Dr. Constantino's presentation last week, where she presented on her plan, and it really lacks any substance. I understand that she wants to put together, a schedule that wouldn't be a 6 to 12, but it needs to be something that we can all look at and say and see what the vision is. There is a very concerning lack of vision as to where the school will be heading, and I think that we all need to take the time. The community needs to know what the vision is. I also really want to publicly thank Kelly Lott, who has been enormously responsive to all of our emails, who has done incredible research, who has taken the time last weekend to attend a conference in Mystic on scheduling, and who has really gone above and beyond in this board. And I thank you, and I think everybody should know to what degree she has really worked to understand what is going on. And I think that the board has much that they can gain from listening to what she has to say. And I really think that we are not a group of people who object to thoughtful change. And we're not a group of people who feel that everything is perfect as it is. But we're smart and we care, and many of us have had our children go through this process. And when you haven't had your children go through block scheduling, the first year you're kind of confused. The second year you're feeling a little more confident. By junior and senior year, you're thinking, this is such a fabulous process of learning. And it all starts to come together. And with all due respect to you, Dr. Constantino, you have not worked with block scheduling, and you really do not know what you're disassembling here. And rather than take apart and throw everything out, I think we have something that is of value that we can work with, and we can take the time and we can build something that's better. And I think that you have ideas that are, and tools that you can bring to the school that will enhance what we have. But don't destroy what so many of us have experienced as a really quite an exceptional program. And you've had students who've been calling you, graduates who've been calling you to tell you this, and students who've stood up and have had the guts to say, please listen to me. So take those voices into consideration here tonight, please. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Well, I have a handout first I'd just like to distribute to the board. So I'm Dana Walker, and I'm a junior. And I'd just like to talk about one of my favorite aspects of Chippewa, and that would be the connections I can have with the teachers. The connections with the teachers are very important to me personally, because if I feel that I'm not connecting with the teacher on a personal level, I'm not properly learning in the class. Because the education just doesn't stop with the material. It goes far, far beyond that. And whenever I meet a teacher, I feel like a part of me changes with every class. So, for example, the classes as we have them now, it's very easy for teachers to establish connections with each student, teach to different kinds of learning styles, and they can get to know each student as an individual. And with a 56-minute schedule, 56, 57, with the breaks and the pauses and trains of thought, that wouldn't be able to happen. For example, I can remember the Allies' war strategy for World War II now because it's like popping a zit in case anyone was interested. Because Germany is in the middle and everyone comes in on all sides. See? I wouldn't be able to remember this if it wasn't for the extended periods of time we can have in block scheduling. And I feel that without this, we would just be learning material just for the sake of putting it on a test. We wouldn't actually be remembering it past high school. Another example I have is I had a teacher last year who she unknowingly taught me how to have more confidence in myself and to have better public speaking skills, which is probably one of the reasons I am able to come in front of you today. And since she has the great opportunity to appeal to every student individually, that wouldn't have been able to happen without the great 84-minute schedule we have today. And I feel like if we had 50-something minute classes, she just wouldn't be able to do what she does as well as she does. So I just hope that you take into consideration that block allows teachers to really connect with students and appeal to different learning styles. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who feels this way. I'm sure many students feel this way too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your public speaking skills obviously showed off. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Steve Williams from Washington, Connecticut. First off, Mr. Chairman and the board, thank you for allowing us to come and speak to you tonight. I think you realize how serious we all take this choice. I understand some of the reasons why we got brought to this point. I disagree a little bit with Peter. I don't think this is truly a line in the sand between you and the doctor. I think this is a point right now that perhaps in her desire to try to improve things, she moved a little too quickly. As we all know, it's a little tough to get this. This all happened so fast for us. I don't know how long and how much information has been given to the board, but realistically, we found out about 2.5 weeks ago that this was going to happen. I've been trying to go and gather information. I've been down to the town hall. I've talked to elected officials down there trying to find some information on how we got to this point. I didn't know if it was purely financially driven. The other night, Dr. Constantino talked about mandated programs from the state that she feels that we're not in compliance with. I certainly understand that. In my profession, we constantly get unfunded mandates thrust upon us, and we need to come up with creative ways to work with the bargaining unit in the city to come up with ways to take on the new fire codes and rules and regulations that are forced upon us, some of them extremely expensive. The other night I did ask if any negotiations or talks had been held with the teachers. One of her concerns was having a planning period with the teachers. Later on in the presentation, she did state that they do have time, and anytime she's asked any of the teachers to meet with her, it hasn't been a problem here yet. I think she's perceiving it as a potential problem. If she starts to use too much of their planning time, the union may take exception with the fact that she's using their planning time for like a staff development time. The other thing, I'd like to thank the board. God knows you guys have been through some tough times for the last couple of years. Between the schools, the consolidation of the primary schools, the new studies on how we're going to take care of the classes with the declining enrollments in the primary schools. I don't think anybody in this room can right now say that we have 60 and 70, 80-year-old buildings that need to be fixed. There's no question about that. And we're taking literally years to kind of come up with a fix on that. And 14, 15 years ago when they started researching the block, they spent 3 years researching the block and a year implementing it. We spent 7 months, or the doctor spent 7 months revisiting our schools, our system, talking with staff, and coming forward with this plan. none of us, or very few of us here, were ever given any information to try to digest this, to see if these are valid concerns, whether we should address this, what we have to take on in a speedy manner. I'll try to speed up there, I don't want to take too much of your time.
Sure.
The other night when we came to the meeting, I got handed a study from North Carolina, a 17-page document from the state of Connecticut, and I sat down in the middle of a very heated PowerPoint presentation trying to get a grasp of why we got to this point. Within a few minutes, I thought the State Board of Education was going to come in and close the school down because we weren't compliant with many of these programs that Dr. Constantino was talking about. If these are that serious, and just as the buildings, if we can spend 2 years figuring out a building, I think we can spend a year or 6 months trying to figure out how to improve the block program. One of our concerns was the CAP tests. Currently, it's kind of up to the parents, the teachers, and the guidance on what classes a freshman or a sophomore takes. If we're starting to see a problem with science and math in a junior or sophomore year, let's make it mandatory to have a math and a science class both years of your freshman and sophomore year. Right now, that's not a requirement. They do have to take a certain number of credits, but it's not in any particular order. If it's hurting us on the CAP test, well, let's make the mandatory classes for the first 2 years. The other thing, the other night I was trying to pay attention, and please excuse my ignorance on the different mandates that were forced upon the school systems, not just us, but I could narrow it down to 5 or 6 pretty significant changes that the doctor's trying to make in one budget cycle. As a board member, having to pay for that, realign the staff, negotiate with the bargaining units, I feel that those are pretty significant impacts to try to pass and get through in one budget cycle. I don't know how you're going to do that. We have a pretty good working relationship with the mayor and my bargaining unit, and you know, I don't think we could do it. I don't know how susceptible the teachers are going to be to these negotiations. And the other side of this is we have seen with our son and daughter, a junior and now a freshman, a significant increase in their learning ability once they go from the middle school to the high school. I can remember when I was a junior in this school, back when it first opened, and we had a 15-minute cycle. All the classes were broke on 15-minute periods, and you could extend them as the teachers required. And I can try to remember that long ago, what we learned versus what the kids, I see my kids learning every night when they come home from school, and it's a night and day difference between what we did then and the new block, or the existing block program here. I strongly urge you to at least table this so we have some more time to research it, but I strongly feel the block program is the way to keep our education going, and if we need to modify the courses that are required of the students, I think we need to make those recommendations to the principals, and I think that's the way we should be going. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sir? No. No. Not you, Gary.
Bill Ciccio from Washington. Everything that I'm going to say has just already been said, so I don't want to belabor any of these points, but it's important to point out that I think that the parents and the students seem to be all on the same page about this being a bad, perhaps hasty decision to scrap the block scheduling. I can tell you personally, my daughter, having gone through middle school and now in high school, she's doing much, much better with the block schedule. It's really made quite a difference, and she made the honor roll for the first time. I'm very proud of her. And I think it had a lot to do with the teacher's ability to spend time, quality time with the students and teaching them in a more innovative way. It apparently took a lot more time to implement the block scheduling, and there was a lot more thought put into it, and it seems kind of rather hasty to just scrap it. The other thing is the students. I mean, basically, this is their school, their education, and I think we should give them more credit for being thoughtful about this. We should maybe even ask them to look at the scheduling issues and maybe form a student committee to come up with some more creative solutions. I think that, again, this doesn't seem to be one of the issues that's divisive amongst all the different towns. It seems as though all the towns, at least from what I've heard tonight, everybody seems to be in favor of continuing the block scheduling, and I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Gary?
My name's Gary Fitzherbert. I'm from Washington. I'm not actually sure what I want to be able to say, but obviously what's going on is very personal to parents and for students that are involved, and I wouldn't make any recommendations. That's what your job is, to review all of this and make your decisions. What I would like to ask, well, maybe I'll say a couple of things. You know, I spent 45 years in education. I'm spending most of my time at this point doing research in education worldwide, and did spend the time on the long-range planning committee, where we did have a ton of research and a lot of investment in people looking forward. I would ask the board to keep things in context as you go forward to that long-range plans. Goal number 1, everything to do with the curriculum. Goal number 2 with the technology. Goal number 3, of course, has been brought up, is how do we manage the system and buildings and that sort of thing. We talked about then, and I just wanted to remind the board that the pressure was going to be on the board, that there were going to be lots of things that were going to be coming up on a regular basis that were going to come to the board where decisions would have to be made. One lady did talk about a vision, and it said there is a vision, there is a long-range plan. How to get there, what the steps are, there was a rough outline, and rough meaning within a very short period of time, 3 years, to be able to implement those plans. And the goal is for the children of tomorrow, and tomorrow is one day away. And so your decisions that you make, this is just the first one. There'll be another second one that will be major, there'll be a third one that will be major, there'll be a fourth one that will be major, as you attempt to provide the best possible education for each individual child. At this level, on something that's, obviously, I attended the meeting the other day with the parents. It's personal, especially probably for the seniors and especially for the juniors, because this is what they know. And it absolutely has been good. I will remind the board, and because I'd like to say this, my daughter went through this school, graduated, and is a medical doctor, a pediatrician in New Milford. There isn't anybody around that loves Chippewa more than she does. Had a great education. That was yesterday. I don't know what the quality of education for tomorrow's kids is. It's way beyond me. My 40 years were yesterday. Your job is tomorrow. So I hope you keep the whole plan as you have it in perspective every time people come to you for decisions. You have to move forward. Good luck.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Susan Swanson, Washington, Connecticut. I want to ask you to think about and to consider the Common Core state standards, which is in the forefront of educational development and is not just affecting the state of Connecticut, but is affecting most of the states within the United States because they're national standards. These national standards are asking our students to raise their level of rigor, to raise their level of stamina, to raise their ability for career readiness, which means that they need to have opportunities within the school setting to visit working in teams, working collaboratively. Those opportunities are greater in a block schedule when a teacher can present learning materials in an interdisciplinary format and also in a format that allows for differentiated instruction and a variety of approaches to learning. My great concerns with the elimination of the block is what happens to those opportunities for our students to become ready for those 21st century skills that they will need in the workforce. What also concerns me is that we currently have a model that allows for 4 classes in the first semester, 4 credits in the first semester, 4 credits in the second semester. So a total of 8 credits within one school calendar year. With the new schedule, the number of classes, the number of credits is reduced from 8 within a year to 7 within a year, which means that a student who could potentially earn 32 credits now only has the opportunity for a maximum potential of earning 28 credits. This is basic math. We are lowering our standards from a graduation requirement of 28 credits to 25 credits with this proposed change. This is lowering standards at a time when we are supposed to be increasing rigor. This also concerns me. I'm not sure when we're up for our next NEASC review, but they will be looking for us to demonstrate that we are increasing rigor, that we are increasing stamina, that we are increasing the opportunities for students to develop 21st century skills to prepare them for career readiness. And I hope that we think about that before we act hastily and move into a new schedule that may negatively impact those programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Susan Walker Bridgewater. That was my daughter that spoke 3 years ago. She probably wouldn't have been able to do that. She's a junior in high school now. I credit the high school for all the confidence that she's been able to gain in her 3 years thus far. I just want to reiterate what the previous lady said. I don't know if all of you who have middle school students or elementary students, I'm not sure you're aware of the benefits of block. I think some dialogue between current parents in the high school and yourself would be welcome, because it's worth explaining. To reiterate what she said, I don't know if you understood, but you can essentially get a 5-year degree, a 5-year high school degree in 4 years on block. You cannot do that on the proposed new schedule. That's a potential total of 32 credits. Go to guidance. They will tell you that universities are impressed with the number of credits that our students are able to achieve in 4 years. The other note I have is I had heard that there was some dissatisfaction by administration with the colleges and universities that the students of this school have chosen to go to or were accepted at. This is not correct.
last year, I know, and you can talk to administration in the school, last year there were a number of students that were accepted at very high-ranking universities. Why didn't they accept those? Because of finance. Okay, there are a lot of middle-class people who don't qualify for financial packages. The economy now is very bad. And what's wrong with the state school? I went to University of Connecticut with a degree in economics. That was a wonderful school for me. So do not let people tell you that our students are not accepted at very good universities, because that is untrue. Guidance has all that information for you. The other fact is, if you were to look back at the schedule before block, it is a fact that more students now on block achieve honor roll status than they did before block schedule was implemented. And that's because the teachers have time to teach to different learning styles. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Monica Taylor, Washington, Connecticut, Washington Depot. Last thing I need to do is be talking in front of you guys, but I really feel it's
I can't
important.
hear you. I don't think that mic is working.
There is no mic here.
There is no
mic.
mic.
I am watching a lot of dialogue go back and forth with a lot of different people, and I'm sure after a while it's difficult to hear each individual case and say, okay, this is new information, but maybe the last statement that somebody makes might be the one thing that you might hear that might make an impact on your decision and what you're thinking about. I looked up Dr. Costantino's dissertation, and I was amazed to see what it was about. She had a thing for looking at, she had early education for her bachelor degree and master's degree in early education, and then administration. And when she got to be for her doctorate, it had to do with having a buddy for kindergarten students with special needs for a half a day schedule versus having them be in a one whole day kindergarten class. And it stated that by being in that class for a whole day, it was equal to having a buddy for kindergarten for a half a day schedule. And it stated that having a longer length of time in school made these students do better. And I think it's surprising to think that having a shortened block, am I incorrect?
You're incorrect.
Right, what?
But that's okay, keep going.
Okay, well, I read it on the internet. I looked it up very carefully. And it did state, by having a longer period in school and a longer time with your education, you get a better education. And I think that it spells that we have a full day kindergarten class right now as well. And we're not just looking at having our block schedule not have any changes, because I know there's a couple things that need to be worked out. And with the schedule, they know how much they can do with it. And our teachers and our principals know that they can fix these issues. And I know it must seem very boring to hear the same thing again and again, but like I said, sometimes the last thing that someone says may be what you were waiting to hear. A lot of times, like, our children have something to say, and the last thing they say is some light bulb moment that says, oh, I just want the kids to have the chance to be in class in a long enough period of time for the teachers and the kids to have the light bulb moment that says, oh, I get it. And that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Why don't we just see if anybody else for this first time? Yes, ma'am.
Haley Munson, Bridgewater. I'm a junior in high school, and I remember one day when Mrs. Gallo came up to the announcements during advisory, and she said that she wanted the advisors to take a few minutes to talk to the students about what they felt. And sitting in my advisor specifically said to us that he thought we were going to start talking about, oh, it's going to be too much homework, or it's going to be too much work for us. And he was very surprised that that's not what we cared about. We cared about our education after high school, and I feel that it's really, all these parents are talking because teachers had said, well, if you want to say something, I mean, you can say it, but you might want to have your teacher or your parents go and say something. But I feel that the students are the ones going through this new schedule change, and the parents are, yes, going to have to listen to what the students come home and say to them, but I feel that the students need to say something because of the fact that we are going through this education. And we have to deal with the schedule change when we are not only like a freshman, but a junior, and we have to go into our senior year with this new schedule and having to deal with going to colleges and having to remember what your schedule is with more classes and the big schedule change. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Anyone else? All right. Round number 2.
I just wanted to say, I forgot to actually say what this is.
I'm sorry, you are Dana? Is that
Yes,
right?
I'm Dana.
Dana Walker? All right, go ahead. Thank you, Dana.
I just forgot to say that this is a petition that I gathered over the course of a few weeks of students at our school. It consists of 167 students. That's a bit over 50% of the student population here at Chippewa. So I thought that should definitely be taken into consideration in making this decision.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Jennifer Anthony Bogue from New Preston. I would just like to say briefly from two perspectives as a parent and a teacher that when I had to switch to the block schedule just last year, I was frightened, nervous about how am I going to do this. My kids, who both went through the block schedule, my daughter's a sophomore doing beautifully at university, and my son, who's a senior now, both said, Mom, you will love it. And they were absolutely right for so many reasons. And I think if I had to switch back to a regular 7 period a day where I feel like a jumping bean, I would be tired. So I would just like to say I hope you will consider looking at the block schedule. We do the AB method, maybe that might be something, but rather than just move away from it, I have found it so beneficial for both my children and for me as a teacher. I really stand behind it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello. I'll make this brief. Richard Dean from Washington, Connecticut. And I just wanted to talk about the CAP scores. At last week's meeting with Dr. C, she made the comment of the 2012 CAP scores were low. And she said, look it up. So took your suggestion and I looked it up. I also asked you a question, which was, previous year's CAP scores, were they the same? You said yes. If we're just going to look at what we had for the math CAP scores, in 2012 they were 48.6%. 2011 CAP scores were 67.4%. That's a big difference from being the same. And if you look from up to 2007, which is what the website listed, we were roughly in the mid-60s in CAP scores. She mentioned in her presentation that one of the reasons for the block one of the reasons for the low CAMP scores was due to the block. So, I mean, the data doesn't show that. That was only one data point in 2012. We'll have to see what happens in the next data point, the next time in 2013. But you really can't make that statement with the 2012 data point. If you look at the schools, if you look at a comparable school, their CAMP scores between 2007 and 2011, a similar size Region 6, we did better in the math portion of the CAMP scores. If you look at 2011 CAMP scores and compare New Fairfield and New Milford in math, we did better than those schools, and they're a lot bigger. So, I mean, I think to say, I think you should not just look at one data point, like you mentioned with the CAMP scores, that they were low. Yes, that's true, they were low. I agree with you that the 2012 they were low, but something else must be going on inside maybe the class or whatever. But I don't think you can blame the entire block, because the block started in 2000, and we're not seeing a decline, at least from what I can tell from the data. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ma'am?
Ellen Tracy from Washington. And I just want to make one point. Everybody keeps bringing up the CAP scores, but I believe that this year's freshmen will be the last set of kids to take that test. And many times they're even being exempt. There's a possibility of getting that, but I don't know whether you've looked into that or not. But I do believe, if I'm correct, it's this year's freshmen. So I think the CAP scores right now is not the test we're looking at. It's the future test that we're going to have to give and go on. And then the other is, it was mentioned that the AB testing, I mean, New Fairfield, New Milford, Brookfield are all on, I think, the AB schedule. I have just gone to the AB. I really like your 4x4. I wish I were in the 4x4 as opposed to the AB. I mean, I love teaching in the block. As I said before, I can get much more in depth with the material, but I do like your schedule, so I wanted to get that point across.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Smith.
Jean Steers from Roxbury, and I just hope that, I know that we're all here for the best of the students. And I just have a question for the board. Do you feel that you have done due diligence and you are ready and fully prepared and confident to make this decision today? And if not, are you willing to give us time so we can all come together, or as a community and or as the administrators can, and look at the block, look at the mandates, and come up with a real solution, or maybe 3 solutions, and then look at it again? Because if you choose against the block today, there's really no going back to that, if it is in fact the best option. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, twice. Anyone else? Thank you all. Appreciate it very much. All right. Item number 4, report of the chair. Just wanted to say that some of us, Dr. Cosentino and a few board members, attended the CABE convention. That's the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education convention in Groton. Earlier, I guess it was, no, I'm sorry, Friday and Saturday. Some stayed for both days. It was very informative. There was a lot of workshops, a lot of, very large attendance, people from all over the state. So got a lot of good information, and I thank those who went. I know Dr. Cosentino went for both days, I believe, and I think Kelly did as well. So thank you for that. That's all I have. Why don't we move on? Next item is item 5, Superintendent's report. Dr. Cosentino?
Yeah, I just want to let the board know that I gave you a copy of my evaluation, the format, nothing was in place here. And so I have 8 goals, performance evaluation goals, that you can read and we can discuss at another time. So that's what I will be working on, and that's what I will give you a report on every time that we meet. The second page talks about the cycle, the evaluation cycle. So probably in January, we will do some kind of formative evaluation based on my goals. I'll give you a summary of where I'm at on each of those. And then every May and June, there'll be the evaluation, and then we'll start again in June, July to talk about the goals for that year. So if everybody's okay with that, that's what we'll do right now. Certainly I'm willing to make changes, but I wanted to get something in place because time was going by us. And what I also gave you from, if you look the third page, it's just things from, and I forget where I got it from, but it's an evaluation. Oh, here it is, I'm sorry. The Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Awards in Education, some of the criteria. Those are the qualities they talk about: board superintendent relations, accomplishment of school systems goals and objectives, educational leadership, community relations, human resource development and management, strategic and financial planning, and personal qualities. So those are just some of the areas. And then what you will do is you will, I guess, either do a little write-up here, or if you want, I can find a rubric. My evaluation will be the last 2 pages. Okay? So if you're good with that, if not, we certainly could talk about it. I'm up for any suggestions, but I did do a little research, and everybody does something different. So I just thought it was something.
Do we need to have a motion to approve this as a rubric, or?
I would think so. I would think so. Just so you know, Dr. Costantino and I discussed this issue of her evaluation and an evaluation document. I asked her to propose something, and she has done that. I think it would be proper for the board to approve this. It doesn't have to be done tonight. It's just in our packets from last week. If we want to put it on a future agenda, although she's right that time is moving, so we need to do it quickly. But if you wish to make a motion tonight,
I would like to so move that we adopt the submitted superintendent evaluation format.
Second.
all right, it's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to comment that I appreciate the time that Dr. Costantino put into this, and also that it's got periodic reviews, which we don't just wait until the end of the year. I think that's really important. It always sort of got away from us in the past, and so then at the end of the year, we would realize we hadn't talked about it throughout the year. So I appreciate that, and I think it looks like a good model to use.
All right, is there anything else? All right, it's moved and seconded to approve this document, evaluation format document that's in our packets tonight as our evaluation document for Dr. Costantino. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, thank you.
Could I ask the superintendent a quick question? What is what are the next steps on goal 3? We have our committees.
We met, goal 3, for those in the audience who don't know, is the goal that deals with the declining enrollment and the facilities. We met maybe a week and a half ago, and we have 7 options, which I have here, because I wanted to talk about them. Yep, here we go. We have the status quo option. We have moving everyone pre-K to 12 up to Chappaq. We have the Roxbury, which you call solution, which is keep WPS, build 1 new elementary school for Roxbury and Bridgewater, and keep Chappaq. The 4th option is 1 new pre-K to 5 and keep Chappaq, middle and high. The 5th option is close WPS, keep Booth and Burnham and the middle high school. The 6th option is make Roxbury K2, Bridgewater 3-5, and keep Washington and Chappaq as is. And the 7th is to create elementary magnets, theme or specialty, keeping all the schools open, but hopefully attracting more students if the schools had magnet themes. So what has happened now is at the last meeting, we formed groups, and we have 7 groups. I am in the process with my secretary tomorrow to finalize the groups. The groups are mismatched. Some have 3 people, some have 15 people. I'm not going to change because I don't want anybody to think that I moved anybody in the group around, but if anybody'd like to join a group, if you give Debbie your name and email, we will put you on a group, and then we are going to meet, hopefully, Mr. Costa is working on a structure for everyone to fill in for their research, and Debbie and I are in the process of getting a meeting together with all the selectmen, the Board of Finance, and myself and the chairman, to just look at the options and see, just have a real discussion about, what should be researched. If there are options there that should not go forward, we want to put that on the table with the selectmen, and we want them to take it off the table so we don't waste resources or time on some of the options that are not going to be feasible. So I'm hoping that we'll have another meeting in the first 2 weeks of January where people can just come in and say, this is where we're at, this is what we need, so that we know if we have to hire an architect or a consultant or whatever. And the other piece is that we are working on getting another consultant who will just work with the different groups to just make sure that the numbers are correct, and that we're really being proactive and including all the costs and everything else that goes, so that no one can really have any doubt about the numbers. So that's where we are. We're moving along.
Good, thank you.
Marty?
Are we all assigned to a group?
No, only if you signed up for one. Would you like to be in a group, Marty?
I would.
Okay, on the list. You're in a group. Done. Anybody else, just see Debbie. We'll be happy to put you in a group.
Anything else, Superintendent? All right, moving on to item 6. To consider and if appropriate approve flexible schedule to begin 2013-2014 school year. Dr. Pascal.
Yes, I want to say thank you for everyone who is here. I want to let you know that I am really very happy to be your superintendent. I knew going in that this was going to be a very difficult job because there are many difficult decisions that have to be made. I thought, as I said at one of my meetings, and I will say it again, and just so you know where I'm coming from, I have been mentored for the last 11 years by a superintendent who was very strong, who listened, and then made the decisions that were best for the district that he served and the children that he served. And I did make a mistake by not going to the parents myself and to the kids myself and telling them once the decision was finalized. I kind of left that to others, and that kind of made things get away a little bit. I am confident that this is the right decision for the region and for the children of this district. There are many voices here that I have heard over the last 2 weeks who are very passionate about the block, and I understand that and I appreciate that. There are also many silent voices who have called me, emailed me, contacted board members who understand the problems with the block and really don't feel comfortable coming out and expressing that. But more than that, instead of just going and answering all the little questions today that came up, I gave the board the reasons that I am asking them to support the new flexible schedule. I will read them to you so you know where I'm coming from. First thing, to ensure that all students have continuous instruction in mathematics, science, and world language at a minimum in 9th and 10th grade. Okay, that currently does not happen, and it is very, very problematic. Next, to increase the class and instructional time in the middle school. What gets lost in these discussions is that the middle school staff in my meetings, and I had meetings, I had committees, I met with principals, I met with students, I met with, who's the other one? Principals, students, staff, faculty meetings. I was there, I talked to people. The middle school is getting lost in this. They want a longer instructional time. Just like you all say, 45 minutes is much too short for instruction. The middle school staff is asking for an increase. The new schedule does that. The high school staff must have time to meet on a regular basis to, number one, become professional learning communities, so they start to look at data, look at student work, look at the assessments, make instructional decisions, plan together, provide interventions, plan interventions, and also to deal with the new teacher evaluation program that's coming down the pike. And we have to be able to do that in a systematic way. We're not doing that. To ensure that the high school staff follows the scientific research-based interventions, SRBI, that are mandated by the state that we do not follow. We do not follow, and in the current schedule, it's nearly impossible to do. To ensure that special education students who need daily resource support are with their non-disabled peers 80% of the time. That also does not happen in this schedule. To ensure that the region uses the middle and the high school staff in an appropriate way so that they can be shared and that we are being fiscally responsible. And that is one of the reasons, there are a couple, but that's one of the reasons why we are not going on a hybrid kind of a schedule. Because again, we're going to have people on different schedules and we're not going to be able to really know where their time is being spent, how we can share them. That's going to be very problematic. And then to provide students with creative opportunities so that they are prepared to meet the challenges when they leave our school. I want to say, and I've said it many times, I am not anti-block. I am not anti-block. What I am saying to you is that the block does not work for all students. And when parents stand and say things like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it if it ain't broke, this is broke in many, many ways. And I'm seeing that. The other thing I want to say, especially to the kids, I know you're here, and I appreciate that, and I think it's great that you standing up for what you believe in, which is wonderful. But most of you don't know any other way. Many school systems have different schedules. A schedule does not make a school. Teachers make schools, students make schools, principals make schools, parents make schools. That's what the relationships are about. Any dynamic teacher can teach for you in 45 minutes or 57 minutes or 84 minutes. One of the most dynamic teachers in this district is the Spanish teacher who teaches in K-2, who runs from classroom to classroom 15 minutes every period. She's unbelievable. What she gets done in that 15 minutes is unbelievable because she has a sense of urgency. She knows when she's in that room, she has to be on from the second she's in till the second she leaves. So I am a firm believer in whatever happens, that Chapag is going to be wonderful. It's going to be fine. I will work with Mrs. Gallo and Mrs. DeBrito to make sure that every student has what they need. They will be able to form some groups and get some more input. And as long as the two schools remain on the same schedule and these areas are addressed, I have no problem if we tweak this. And the other piece that is so wonderful about Chapag, which is the humanities, we're going to be able to join classes. So that is still going to be there. And, you know, whatever else happens, I hope tomorrow, whatever else happens, if people vote no, tomorrow I'm going to be a superintendent, I'm going to move forward. If they vote yes, tomorrow I'm going to be a superintendent, I'm going to move forward. But I have to tell you, we are in a time of educational reform. And we have a lot of things that we have to address. And this is just one small part. And I promise you, starting tomorrow, you will be included from step 1 on. But the other thing I'm going to tell you, I will take everyone's input, I will listen, I will look at the evidence, but I'll always do what's best for your children. I'll always do what's best for your children. Even if 100 people are screaming at me, because I'm the person who has to look from 10,000 feet and make sure all the parts are working together. So with that said, I thank you for your passion. I hope that, you know, regardless of what happens, you're going to stick with me. And the other thing is, I will be holding dissertation seminars in December and January for everyone who would like to come and listen to my dissertation. I'd be happy to share it with you. Thank you.
Are you serious?
I'm very serious. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No.
I do think it's important everyone know that regardless of what happens, as Dr. Constantino said, if you want to get a good, if you seek a good education, you're going to get it here, you know, one way or the other. My daughter, I was on the board when we implemented the block schedule. My daughter graduated in 1998. Before that, she was in the traditional schedule. She ultimately was magna cum laude from Columbia University, went to Oxford University, and is part of the White House Press Corps. I say unashamedly bragging. But you will get a wonderful education here no matter what. You just have to be a part of it and seek it. Having said that, I'm basically open-minded about this, but I do have a couple of questions. It has been my impression, perhaps wrong, that, and forgive me, middle school parents and kids and teachers and administrators, middle school is the vast wasteland. Middle school is where people kind of drop. And then they come back when they're a little more secure in themselves and mature and available to education. It was my impression that perhaps moving block or a modification of block down to middle school and integrating middle school more with the high school, that is to say, instead of 331 kids being affected, we start looking at the 200 and change kids in middle school, integrate them more into what I think is a good educational system. Have we looked at that?
We've discussed it, yes.
And what is the feeling about that?
Well, the middle school philosophy really speaks to the fact that you want to give kids as much exposure to different options as possible, the unified arts. The other piece is that it is very difficult to sit for 84 minutes. It's very difficult for a lot of the high school kids. And, you know, it's just, we didn't feel that that was the way to go. The other piece of that is the block has some inherent problems in it instructionally. And as you get smaller and smaller, the problems are getting more, are increasing.
And I do understand your concern, and we've seen it demonstrated, that indeed some kids, those that, for instance, don't favor math, don't take math every year. And so when we have CAP scores, or whatever the new iteration is going to be, we find some of those kids really are taking a math test and not having a math course for maybe 2 years or 1 year. Is there a way we can integrate or have a study of a modified block, a block that we have now perhaps reaching down into the middle schools, say the 7th and 8th grades, so we can use the staff more intelligently, but also then insert what I'm going to call a core block, so that we don't let those kids, no child left behind type of thing, that we have a core block, particularly near those testing times in March usually, that reinforce math. And for those math and science kids, reinforce reading and writing, so that we're always preparing the kids. And frankly, I think teaching to the test on occasion is just reinforcing skills that they need. So I know that's a problem for block, but I wonder if we can modify it so we can address that particular problem.
you want me to answer that?
Please.
Okay. You know, I had many conversations with the administration of both schools, and it was clear to me that it was very hard to find common ground. We looked at many different schedule options, and part of the issue that is, one of the main issues that I'm trying to do is to get both the middle and the high school on the same schedule. When you start talking about modified blocks and not in the 6th grade, but in 7th, 8th, 9th, etc., and then you start saying, you know, we're gonna, closer to assessment time, we're gonna extend things and not extend things, you come into very murky waters as far as the teachers' union and contract. I mean, they have specific times that they work and what they're expected to do, and I'm not speaking badly about any teachers here. I'm just saying that I have to work within the confines of this program. We have, although we're not calling this new schedule a block, it has block-like aspects where Mrs. Gallo can link any classes she wants together. That's available in this program. So everybody's going to have a double block of humanities. That program's going to stay. It's a little longer than it is now, but we certainly, when we look at the curriculum, we'll be able to tweak that, whether we add some digital citizenship or some technology in there, that won't be a problem. But if she finds that she wants to add an art and a history class together, or a math and a science class together, she can still do that. So she's still, this program, this schedule does address that. It does address that.
And one more thing. I have great respect for you.
Thank you.
And I think, frankly, when we were looking for someone to come into our school system, I do believe I was your earliest champion, and I do believe you're going to do great things here. But can we not just take a breath and study these alternatives and say, come back in February, and not because we want a popular solution, absolutely not, we just want the right solution. And take a look at some of these other things. For instance, that core block, what we could do at the middle school, once again, reaching down, not reaching up, helping all. I'd like to see a little bit more study. And also, I really, since we're going to get into budget time and since I'm the numbers person, what are we going to save? I really want to know, what are we going to save? Because that would be, I think, very important, assuming we still have, and I know we will, quality education.
I can't, with the schedules right now, I cannot honestly figure out what we're going to be able to save, because the schedules are so different. Okay? And I'm not talking so much about the core people. I'm not talking about math and science and English and social studies and science. I'm talking about art and music and PE and world language and technology. I believe we're going to be able to save. This, though, the primary reason for doing this is not just costs. It's being able to use our resources more effectively so we can provide different opportunities for kids. So, for example, one of the things I've spoken about is virtual high school. I'd like to bring in virtual high school. Now, virtual high school costs right now about $425 a student. So you figure if we have 20 students, it's going to be $10,000. As a new superintendent, I just don't want to add $10,000 to the budget, okay? I want to be able to say, you know, I've looked at everything, I've evaluated costs, and I feel that we can do this, this, and this, and be able to save some money, and therefore bring in this, this, and this. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I have not really done much work with the budget yet, because this is really a structure that has to be in place, okay? I hear you, and I truly believe that if we did 3 more months of this, We would still have those people who would be dead against making any changes because they love the block. And then you'd have those other people who are not speaking up. Now, we've gotten many, many emails from people who are in support of the change. This is, as I said to the board in October, because I did bring this, and I also want to just bring it out there. I met with people, okay? I had committees, we did lists, I've met with staff, I've met with administrators. This is the first of really many changes that have to happen as we're dealing with educational reform, new teacher evaluation, Common Core standards, a declining enrollment. You know, these are all things that eventually it's going to happen. At some point, people are going to have to pull a Band-Aid, as people have said to me, and move forward. There is no doubt in my mind that we move forward and we're okay. I understand that people are nervous. I understand that. But, you know, it's, you know, I look here, I have I have DERG A here, the top schools in the state from DERG A, and every one of them has an 8-period day with periods dropping out. Every one. Richfield, Darien, Joel Barlow, New Canaan, Weston, Westport, and Wilton. They all have that. And when people speak about the other schools going to the block, they're dealing with different issues. Number one, they have an AB block, which is 8 periods, 8 classes for people. And you have year-long classes every other day. We don't have that here. We have students here who do not take geometry as a sophomore and take the CAT, which is half of geometry. That's what's going on in this school right now. And I have to be mindful for all students, not for just the students in which the block works. And there are a lot of students in which this block does not work. And that's where I'm coming from.
Greg?
I heard the sentiment of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And before this meeting, I had an opportunity to go through and examine the test scores, not only of the schools that are local and the schools that are in our DERG, but the DERG A as well, because those are the kind of schools that you know, that you aspire to, and we share. Some of them are in our Anglican. We share their economic characteristics, and we have the ability to put forth those education. And I will tell you, when I looked at math, I was depressed. I was depressed primarily because, yes, you have schools like New Milford, who are in the mid-60s, and Fairfield is in the 70s, and Brookfield in the mid-70s. But the schools in that top group, your Wiltons, Ridgefields, Westport, New Canaan, Darien, Region 9, Barlow, are all in the mid-80s. Chippewa was at 46.8 in 2012. That isn't abysmal, that's horrific. That's a tragedy and that's a problem. Yeah, 1 year, but let me tell you something, the trajectory is not very good. And I looked at the trajectory from the previous 5 years and it's not good and it's not heading in the right direction. So I said, let's go look at science and see what that looks like. Yes, your New Milford is at 60 and Region 9 is in the mid-70s, upper 70s, and the New Canaan, Brookfields, Fairfields, Westport are all in the high 70s and low 80s. And then you get to Region 12 in science, and it's 51.9. Now, I grant you, it's not down there in the 12 or 14 range of say, a major city like Bridgeport. But I will tell you that it's not good, and the trajectory is not good in science. It's looking bad. It's heading in the wrong direction. I'm not putting the blame, like a lot of people want to do, that test scores equal how your teachers are performing. Far from it. We have a tremendous staff, but something isn't working here. So I looked at writing, and I wanted to see what those scores look like. And in writing, they're definitely improved in 2012. But the problem is that we're not anywhere near what some of the better schools are. The other schools they're doing well here. Again, your Region 14 and 15 in the low 70s to low 80s to mid 70s. You've got Canton in the low 80s. You've got New Milford in the mid 70s. You've got the Litchfields and Brookfields in the mid 80s. The Darien, Westport, Wilton, New Canaan, Ridgefield, Barlow group between 90 and 94. Chippewa at 72.7 is better than it was last year. but it ain't setting anybody on fire. So I said, now let's look at reading. Now, 2012 in reading, was a year in which the New Canaans, the Region 9s, the Westports, the Wiltons, the schools in that top group are hitting in the high 80s to low to mid 90s. And Chippewa hit at 59.2. I got to tell you, this is not what I think our district is capable of. It's not what our students are capable of. It's not what we should be doing. And if it's broke, you got to do something. Now, we're running not just this, but we're running into a situation in which we're going to have Common Core standards and 21st century skills embedded into the curriculum. This is going to cause all the teachers to have to rethink how they're teaching and what they're teaching. So what we want to do is this year, we want to have, over the course of the next year, embed these things in the curriculum and have everyone have to rethink and redo their preps and all the things they have to do for classes, so that a year from now or 2 years from now, we can then go and decide to change the schedule, and then we're going to have to redo it all over again. Talk about a disruption for the teachers. The time to do this is now. It's not to wait and do it in the future, because all we're going to do by pushing it off in the future, if we're going to do it, we should do it now, because it should be at the time at which you're making other changes, so that you have the minimum disruption by taking care of it all now and doing it once. In terms of what's going on in the classrooms, this is something that we have to depend on our administrators to do and to know and to figure out how to do. But the one thing that impresses me about this whole thing is that we're not doing anywhere near as well as people think. We need to be shaken out of our torpor here of just going along and thinking what we've done for years is good and is really doing well. I mean, this school did go to a block schedule in 2000. When it won the blue ribbon, it won it in 1998. It won it before it went to a block schedule. And if we could become one of the best schools in the country without having the block schedule, then the question you have to ask is, what is the block added? Well, I don't know what the block has added, but I will say that this district is absolutely in a not good position, and everyone seems to be content with that. And the status quo ante isn't good. I heard at one of the meetings that we're not attracting other students. Look, let me put a fork in this right now. Explain this to you. There are about 20 Sherman students in this school. A few years ago, it was 60. I hate to say it, but if the block schedule is the thing that attracts people, it's not doing it with Sherman, and that's the one place we can attract. You are not going to get students from Region 14 and Region 15 and Wamogo and New Milford, the other schools. They are not coming here. Their boards of ed are not going to pay $25,000 a year to send them to our district. They are not going to do that. Their parents are not going to spend $25,000 a pop on their kids to send them here out of their own pockets. Why should they send them to a public school for that when they can send them to a private school? So the point is, the idea that we're going to attract people, if we really wanted to attract people, we would try to figure out a way to get parents to have 5 and 6 kids and make the atmosphere conducive to that, because that is how you will increase the population. Or the other way is to take the values of your houses, cut them in half, and attract more people from the surrounding communities that want to move here for cheap housing. Because those are the two ways you're going to increase the population, but you are not going to do it through attracting kids from other schools and picking them off from the other surrounding districts, because it ain't going to happen. So that isn't going to happen. And here's what we're facing. 167 students that signed the petition constitute about 50% of the high school. Well, let me tell you something. In 2022, they're going to constitute 85% of the high school, because that's the size that we're going. We are order of magnitude getting smaller. There will be 200 and change students in this high school in 2022, as opposed to the 350 odd children that are here, 340 odd children that are here now. If you don't think that's going to have an impact on the education, you're kidding yourself. And the thing that I'm concerned about is that if we do the standard Chippewa Valley District thing that we've done for the last 25 years, which is to say, well, let's study it, let's punt it down the road, let's kick the can down the road, let's not face the problems because they're only going to get better tomorrow. We are kidding ourselves. We have done this every time the community has come together and said, we know what's best, this is what we want for our district, and now we're facing a cliff, a sheer wall of small demographics, difficulty, lousy test scores. It is a perfect storm for putting this district in a horrible position. And I'll put it this way, as bad as it is to face it in 2013, it's going to be manifestly worse to try to face it in 2016, and it's going to be even worse than that in 2020. And if you think at that point you're going to have the ability to deal with it, the answer is no. We need changes made now. It's why we hired a superintendent who is dynamic, who is going to not be afraid to rattle cages and to go after things that have just been allowed to sit and fester and not get better. And I know it's going to break some eggs to make the cake, and people are not going to be happy. But what this board did is it engaged a superintendent to make the tough decisions and to lead the district. And the superintendent, under the statutes, is the CEO of the district. And I think the board should support the CEO in the initiatives that she brings forth to change this district into the kind of district that we know it can be, because we have the critical mass of people, we have the critical mass of involved parents, we have the critical mass of an outstanding faculty, and a very, very excellent staff, an outstanding staff, and we are finally putting those pieces together, but unfortunately, it's going to be painful. And I know, I've never seen an issue that's more passionate than this, and I've never seen that before, but we need to turn that passion into making it work, and we need to not go back home, regardless of what the decision is, and say to our students, oh, I fear for you in this new system. You can't learn, because that's the fastest way that they won't. And we really need to focus on this. We need to come together and to make a tough decision here. And I think we should listen to what the superintendents say, because I'm telling you, what I'm seeing in the numbers are not giving me comfort that this district is heading in the right direction. It's heading in exactly the wrong direction. And your kids are going to be competing for scholarships, for college education admissions, for all of these things against these students from these schools like Westport, New Canaan, Darien, and Farlow, and the others like that are in that group. And I've had the privilege to happen to know what some of those schools think about it, and those schools are not headed in the direction of a block schedule. So I'm saying the block was a great thing, perhaps when it was brought in 2000, but if it's not serving our needs now, it is but time to rethink it, and time to rethink how you can take the best of it by allowing classes to be combined, by allowing the building leaders, the principals, to work with the superintendent and the curriculum coordinator to do that, and at the same time have the ability to do the other things. And I will tell you, I've had 2 kids go through this system. I've one that went K through 12, and I have one that's gone K through 10, is now in the 10th grade. And I can tell you that there's nothing more pleasant than sitting down after the end of the 9th grade and plotting out their entire schedule for the rest of high school, only to have it upended the next year when they can't fit the classes together because of the scheduling, because we've only got 4 classes, and therefore now you have to. And there's disruption for those students as well, and I've seen it happen to a lot of people. I've heard a lot of complaints about that. Yes, the block has great advantages. It also has disadvantages. And we've got to depend on our leadership to tell us which direction we should go in this way, because while it's nice to have a plebiscite about issues related to budget, about issues related to how many buildings you should have or what the configuration should be, what goes on in those classrooms, how it's taught, and the manner it's taught, and the length of time it's taught, is not for a plebiscite to decide. It's for the professionals that have been engaged, the teachers, the principals, the staff, the curriculum coordinator, the superintendent. Those people have to give us the clue on how to do that, because we're dependent on them, and we have planned to hold the superintendent accountable for the results, and that's the basis on which we hired the superintendent. And frankly, these results need to be improved. And I don't mean this as a criticism of our staff or teachers or building principals. It's a fact of the matter that whatever is not working needs to be fixed.
Well said, well said.
Emily, Valerie, I will recognize you, but I just want to give someone else.
Sure,
Emily?
I'll be brief. I just want to thank everyone for their tone tonight. I didn't want to throw up at all today, and I appreciate that. And I think I have had a little bit of an education, since my kids are not near the block yet, from people who have been very kind and enlightened me. And I see pros and cons of both. And I've been told that Chapag, when you get one out of here, they're insightful and thoughtful and well-rounded and community-oriented. And a lot of people feel that the block has a great thing to do with that. And I think that that probably is fostered a lot in the block, but I have to say I have a 4th and a 6th grader. And I think a lot of it comes with the community that we have, because I see that in them already, and they haven't even gone near the block. and I know I've always been called a glass half full kind of girl, but if it gets passed, the way I'm looking at it is a chance to break everything down and start it back up again in a different way. I've been told that as long as it's in the 56 minutes and they're on the same schedule, everything else is on the table to create something completely new that will work with what very interesting dynamic we have reaching from 6 to 12, which we've never done before. We were pioneers with the block. Maybe we can be pioneers with something else. I want everyone to, if it gets passed, try to think of the positives that maybe we could be pioneers again. But thank you for your tone tonight.
Tony?
I totally agree with what Greg said. I don't have any children in high schools, so I can't address that point of it. But we found what we were looking for in Dr. Constantino. She's done a fantastic job so far. I think for me to sit here and try to second guess her when she's been in the conversations with her staff and principals and so on and so forth, and has the experience and the education to do this sort of thing, I definitely support her wholeheartedly. I don't think I want to second guess her capabilities.
Fran?
Change is inevitable. We change every day. Our bodies change, our minds change, our wardrobes change. Change is there. And our hope is that the changes we make every day are changes for the better. But there's never a guarantee. The new flexible schedule that's being proposed is a change. I'll agree with you, it is. But I see this as a change for the better, although I know many of you feel differently. And I hear you. I have listened to you. I have read your emails. I understand where you're coming from. And this is what I have heard in a breakdown. The original block is not perfect. It has many positive attributes, but it also has gaps. When I hear supporters of the original block say it works in one breath, and in the next breath say we work around that, the gaps, the music, the arts, the APs, it only goes to show to me that the original block is no longer working the way it was originally intended to work, and it needs to be tweaked. Kim Gallo agrees that there are these gaps and has studied and is looking to implement a modified block at the high school. Teresa DeBrito agrees that the current schedule at the middle school has gaps and needs to be modified. This new 6 to 12th grade modified schedule will allow our schools, both our schools, the flexibility needed for educational success. It will give our students, all of our students, more. It is not simply about state mandates. It is not simply about online courses. It is not simply about test results. It is not simply about program gaps. It is not simply about you, and it's not simply about me. It is about our students, our children. It's about their education of our children, all of our children. It is about the future of our region. It is about the willingness to work together and about making Chippewa a better beacon of success. I support this change.
Michael?
Again, second a number of the things that I've been hearing from other board members. And I thought it might be useful to look at some of what I thought were some of the myths that I've been hearing about the block schedule. One of the things that I've been hearing is that the hallmark, the best part about Chippewa is the block schedule, what defines Chippewa. And while I have a daughter who's currently in the 8th grade, she's looking at going to Chippewa next year. I don't have a student at Chippewa. I would respectfully disagree with that. I think that saying that the block is the best part of Chippewa would be like saying that our roads are the best part of Roxbury, Bridgewater, and Washington. The block is simply a method of delivering what is special about Chippewa. And what I'm looking forward to would be the small size, the personalized approach, the fact that we have a caring staff, excellent teachers, we have an innovative curriculum. There are really great things going on here at Chippewa. We have a senior project. We have students that care about their communities, that volunteer. Those are what I think make Chippewa special, not a block schedule. And I don't think, I would respectfully disagree that if we went to any other kind of a schedule, those things would all magically disappear like the morning mist. I don't think they would. The other myth that I've been hearing is that block schedules are far superior to traditional schedules. They're cutting edge, that the educational community supports the idea that traditional schedules are a thing of the past and we all need to move to block schedules. If that was true, then as Mr. Cava said, some of the best schools in the state would have left behind the traditional schedule long ago and moved to a block schedule. To give you one example of some of those quality districts that have kept a traditional schedule, Ridgefield High School just completed a 2-year study. They had a traditional schedule, they were looking at the concept of moving to a block, and they decided to stay within a traditional schedule after a 2-year study. Most middle schools, as we've talked about, including Chippewa Valley Middle School, work off of a traditional schedule. Most private schools, if you look at quality private schools in the area, such as Taft, Canterbury, Immaculate, most private schools offer students traditional schedules. They do not offer block schedules. They may have some opportunities for combining, such as we've talked about, combining disciplines, but most of them offer a traditional schedule as far as the amount of time in a class. And the research is at best mixed. One study that I looked at, it was called a Comparative Study of Block Scheduling and Traditional Scheduling on Academic Achievement, Journal of Instructional Psychology, September 2000. I won't read you the whole thing because it will definitely put you to sleep right now. But one finding was that it revealed that students on the traditional schedule scored significantly higher on the Algebra 1, Biology, English 1, and US History tests compared to those students on the block schedule. Again, that is one schedule, one study rather. Here's a second one though. This one is from the Principals Partnership. It's a research brief, and they second in the summary of their findings that findings are mixed on the effectiveness of various scheduling models. So those are two different studies. There's many more out there which will agree with the idea that the research is really mixed on which one is far superior. The other myth that I've been thinking about is the idea, again, that we've talked about, that we don't need to make any changes, that things are fine. We've heard from some parents that have had students do wonderful things and graduate from the high school, and I don't disagree with that. I think that that's definitely true. However, I would second the fact that I think that our CAP scores are too low. And I think that the gaps in instruction that we currently have, particularly in world languages and in math, I see as problematic. And you don't need to be an educator to get that. The idea that if you take a year off of math, taking a state assessment or taking the SAT might become more difficult for you in high school. Again, the CEA, the Connecticut Education Association, they put out a professional issues series, and one of their series is on the basics, it's called The Basics of Block Scheduling. And they identified a number of key strengths that go with the block, but they also identified a number of key problems that we've talked about, one of which is the retention of information. Students have a hard time retaining information if they don't have continuous instruction, if there are major gaps in their instruction. A second opportunity to take an AP course is often reduced in block scheduling. It also intensifies the problem when students are absent. They're not just missing a 45-minute class, they're missing a double class, really. And then finally, the idea that some parents have that actually homework increases in a traditional model is not borne out by the research. In fact, some blocks actually increase the amount of homework that students are given. Finally, I think the most important reason we need to change is I do believe that we need more choices for students, whether it's at the top end through the virtual high school and those AP courses, or through more arts classes, culinary arts, other kinds of opportunities for students. So I think for all those reasons, we need to give the superintendent's plan our vote.
Larry?
I want to be brief. I want to second what the three gentlemen on my right have said. There is something broken here, and it's not a fault of these talented teachers, not at all, or the talented administrators, but something's not working. And if I understand it correctly, going to a standard schedule would increase the minutes by 45 hours more instruction under the standard program versus the block. And it seems, as somebody in the audience said, that the more time you spend in class, perhaps the more you learn. Certainly, I think that has something to do with it, and I would certainly like my children or grandchildren at this stage to have an opportunity to spend more time with the Shipaug teachers. They're great, and they do a terrific job. And I remember talking to Ms. Gallo about this, that the attitude here is, we're going to do whatever's necessary for your children to learn, to master skills. We will jump through hoops. So the more time you can spend with a child, the more time the child has to learn. And that's what it's all about, not just getting a grade. It's about mastering something. Second, I would like to support our superintendent. When I came on the board 4 years ago, I was surprised, and continue to be surprised all the way through the last few years, at the lack of support, I guess, of the superintendent. And perhaps also, I was surprised to see that the board was pretty much trying to do the superintendent's job, for which we are not all terribly skilled. So I'd like to support this superintendent, who we hired, particularly because we thought she had, and we know she has, the skills to take us where we need to go. Fix something that's broken, don't know exactly what it is. She's looked at it, she's come up with an idea, which makes good sense to me. And just publicly, I want to go on record as saying, I support her in what she's doing.
Thank you, Larry. Michelle?
Yep. I wanted to first thank everybody who came tonight to share their thoughts about the block. And I wanted them to know that the board has been listening, and we listened last week as well when we were at the Information Center session. I think that was on Thursday, and the board meeting on Monday. I think a debate is really healthy. I think it's important to really examine something before you move forward. And when something is debated and challenged, it really forces you to go back and look at the assumptions that you made. And we clearly have all done a lot of that, and I won't share all of the research that I brought with me because it's already been shared with everyone. I am concerned for the region, though. I think we need to all remember to be careful with our tone and tenor of our conversation, because we all want the same thing, which is to improve and help all of our students achieve. And I appreciate the tone tonight. That was really wonderful because I was able to listen to everything that was said. And I just know that we have a lot of difficult decisions moving forward. So if we can think about that, because we don't want to let the tenor of our discussion detract from what we're all trying to work together to improve, because it is the passion of the community, I think, that is so special about Shipaug. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. You know, I've been concerned about our capped scores, but for me, scores aren't everything. I really like looking at the whole child. And when I hear the audience talking about deep learning and problem solving, all of that, I realize that you have heard us, whether it's the administrators or the teachers, talking about what good teaching looks like, which I think is great. I have taught under the block and the traditional schedule, as Michael has, and he said last week. I really think good teaching is about what happens in the classroom with a good teacher, and there's no magical number. It's not 43 minutes, it's not 56 minutes, it's not 72 or 80. You can find models for that everywhere. So I think the quality of the teaching is really one of the things that makes Shipaug very special, and that will happen in a 56-minute time period. By looking at, I think to back that up, what makes Shipaug special, the thing that I was really interested in, everyone was really talking about the college completion, because that was one of those statistics that we have that is possibly looking at more of the whole child and not just our SAT scores and our CAP scores, which are not really where I think they could be, but looking at that college completion. So I went and looked at the other 9 districts. I looked at the top 10, which we're in, and none of them have a block schedule. One of them has a modified block. So I don't think our high completion rate, which is 64%, I don't think that we can say necessarily that that's due to the block. So there's something else that's making what's going on here at Chapag special. And I think the fact that we have focused, that we've got our student competencies focusing on breaking down large problems and developing defensible conclusions and judgment, that shows that we've been focused on good teaching since the beginning. And now our long-range plan has in its very first goal to incorporate the 21st century skills, half of which are about problem solving. So the model, the emphasis on good teaching is part of what we have here, as well as the passion, the teaching models, our size. I think the fact that we're small allows our teachers to get to know our students, our guidance counselors to be able to help to steer them into possibly the right direction. So I think there was a lot of talk last week of saying that everything that's special about Chapag is the block, and I don't think that's what it is. I think we've been successful because of or in spite of the block, depending on how you look at the research. So there are other things that really make this community special too, and those are the things I think we need to continue to make sure we move forward. Because we want to continue for our students to achieve, and we actually want to improve that achievement. And I think the superintendent has laid out some of the challenges that the block schedule has for us in order to meet those goals. And so we have to adjust. We would not be doing a service to our community if we were not adjusting based on what we're seeing the state of things is right now. So that's why I feel like we need to not only support the superintendent because it's her job to manage things, but I also feel that this is the right decision to make for the community. And I also have an 8th grader. So this schedule, if this new schedule goes into effect, it will affect my family as well as my sensibility as an educator of what is best for this district.
Thank you, Alan? Sorry.
I'd just like to say, as I've seen people leaving, and as it probably is clear to a lot of you who have given up a lot of your time to come here, and a lot of you who have given up a lot of your peace of mind over the last several weeks to be very concerned about what's happening, that I want to apologize to you. I can't accept the blame personally, although I'll accept part of it. I want to apologize for putting you through this, because change is always painful. But change management makes it less painful because people are supported and guided and given that extra care that is needed to have their lives turned upside down. Life is difficult, and going to high school and being a student in high school is a lot of work. And being a teacher of high school students is a lot of work. And administering those teachers is a lot of work. And just when you think you have at least a vision of how much work you're going to have to put in for the next year or so, all of a sudden someone comes along and says, oh, guess what, you got to change everything. And we don't like that, and that's very painful in any regard. And so I'm apologizing for the stress that this has caused you, because I can tell from some of the things that are said today, and as Michelle said in a much nicer tone, but a lot of the things that I've heard over the last several weeks, that when people get shocked and startled and stressed and afraid, they react with a great deal of hostility, a lot of protection, and their hearing becomes a little muddled. And I'm saying this because what I've been focusing on listening to is a lot of the requests for more time, more research, more understanding. And that's another reaction when someone has shocked you, to just like stay, relax, hold on just a second, please. Give me some more time to deal with this. And I want to assure you that even though it looks different, that there's been 7 months, and 7 months without you is a lot different than 4 years. Am I cut off?
No.
4 years with you or those of your ilk 9 years ago, 12 years ago. Going into something new and unknown takes that kind of research and that kind of in-depth study. But we're not entirely going into something unknown here. We're going to something traditional. And what traditional means that we know about it. I have tried to find an analogy for this, and I've come up empty. But basically, when you try new technology, I came up with microwave ovens of all things. You know, you want to use one of those, they're new and different, and you decide, and they have all kinds of exciting new things about them, and there's some drawbacks. And what if after time you decide, well, you know, the food is kind of weird out of a microwave, never mind. I'm just going to go back to that gas or electric oven. You don't need to research the electric oven quite as much as you did when you looked into buying your first microwave, because you already know it. Now, if someone tries to yank that microwave away from you without you going through that, it can be painful and scary. And I know that that's how it feels, that's what we've gone through here. So, I want to reassure everyone that we have, and maybe you have been slightly, because you're still here, you haven't all left. As you can tell, we've all been looking into this very carefully over the last several weeks. And Dr. Cosentino has been looking into it very carefully over the last several months. And I just, I don't feel that I need to repeat some of the things that the other board members have said, but I do want to know that we have heard not only your rational concern, but we've also heard your irrational concern. And we want to keep that in mind and try to make sure that you don't go home, tear your hair out because things didn't turn out the way you clearly, passionately wanted them to, because in time you'll see that we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We're not trying to destroy something just because it seemed like a fun thing to do, that we're not doing this capriciously. We're doing this with the intent of adjusting things to make them not different for different sake, not ruining a lot of things to make one tiny little thing better, but changing something to make a whole lot of things better. Because unfortunately, as painful as it is, in order to meet changing times, you do have to change. And all I can say is that we will do our best, because we are also getting used to a new superintendent just as you are. We will do our best to make sure that we manage that change to make it less painful in the future. As I said, when I started this, I said I wanted to apologize for change mismanagement. We will do better to support both our superintendent and our community in the future, because as you've been led to believe from what people have said, there is more change afoot so that we can continue to provide the best possible education for the region students.
Well, it looks like I'm going to be alone in my vote, but I'm okay with that. I'm not going to support this proposal because I don't think it is the best thing for our students. I did attend the CABE convention with Ellen and Michelle and Jim this weekend. It wasn't a scheduling convention, it was about a lot of topics, but might as well have been a scheduling convention for anyone who sat next to me, because the first thing I did when someone sat next to me at a meal or a workshop would say, what kind of schedule is your high school on? And interestingly, my experience is only anecdotal, but everyone I spoke to was either had moved to a block schedule or a hybrid schedule, was in the process of researching it, or was about to engage in that process. No one was moving the other direction. I found it interesting. Again, it's just anecdotal, but that's what I found. It seems to meet the more in-depth learning needs that a lot of people are looking for. I also went to the workshop on the role and responsibilities of superintendents and boards. I was very interested in getting feedback from people far more expert than I on what our role as a board should be in this issue, in this discussion. The heading the panel was the superintendent from Naugatuck, the CABE head himself, and a woman from Simsbury who is the CABE executive board president, an 18-year board member, and the president of the Simsbury board. And she relayed to me, first of all, they said that this is a board super joint issue. They believe that the board and the superintendent should work jointly on this. The Simsbury Board of Ed had said that they had just moved to a hybrid schedule after a year of hard work between the Board of Education and the superintendent. I took a look at their hybrid schedule. In the very brief time I've had to look into this schedule, because we've only seen and heard about this in about the same time frame the rest of you have, the last few weeks. In the very brief time I've looked at it, I tend to favor the hybrid schedule. I know it's work, I know it would imply research, but I think it would meet the needs that we have on both sides of the argument for more in-depth learning opportunities, and it would meet the needs of, it would solve the problems of things like course continuity, which are obvious dilemmas that we need to solve. But I still have a lot of questions. I still have a lot of questions that aren't answered, and I don't know why we can't take more time and do some work, because this board has done no work on this issue. No work. So my questions aren't answered either. I'd like to know. I'm actually in favor of some of the things that they talk about as being advantages. I'd like to see the middle school and high school on the same schedule. I think that whatever the schedule is that's chosen, it should be the same, because if you have a child who's talented in math or art, it's just not wise for them not to be able to come up here and take advantage of more advanced instruction. I mean, there's an invisible wall right now. So I think that's a fantastic idea. And we can have teachers teach up and down. That's great. I love that idea. I like the idea of the continuity in these courses that are really critical for our students. A hybrid schedule would give us the ability to have continuity in math and in foreign language instruction. And yet it would offer even those subjects a greater amount of time to work on the days that are appropriate for the larger block for those subjects as well. So they benefit on both sides. I have a question about logistics and how it would work. Bethel High School uses a traditional block, but it's 3 times larger than this school. And most of the schools that are using the traditional block are between 1,000 and 2,000 students. I have real questions about how the logistics will work out in the implementation of this proposal. If we were going to have 7 or 8 block schedules, and we have 310 students, and we want to offer them a wide variety of courses, what's the minimum number of students required to run a course? And are we going to have so few people who are available in some time slots in that myriad of choices to be able to run the courses we want to run, or will they be canceled? I'd like to know whether the students will have scheduling conflicts, because we won't have 5 sections of French 2. So if there's going to be 1 section of French 2 or whatever, if their biology conflicts with it, they may not have French 2 for a year. So we may be right back in the same world of continuity problems that we have right now. I'd like to know if the factors that are causing the test results that Greg is worried about are really caused by the block schedule, if there's correlation, causation, or should we really dig deeper and do a little more work as a board and find out what's not working. If we're just making an assumption that it's the block schedule, I don't know that a traditional schedule is going to solve that. I don't know that a hybrid schedule is going to solve that. Could be the curriculum. I could be the curriculum. It could be any number of things. But I'm not really one with the idea that if we solve this, we're going to solve that. I just don't see that there's no one's proven that to me. I think it's perhaps some of these things are a red herring. I also have to say I'm very, very concerned about how this process has taken place. We are supposed to be interested in 21st century skills for our students. And I appreciate the fact that our students have come tonight and they've been watching this process. And we are asking them to really embrace this new world of 21st century learning and interactions. Those skills include collaboration, adaptability, analysis. That implies that there's data put forth to analyze, and communication skills. And I've seen the presentation on this issue, I felt had a lot of things that were just not germane to the topic at hand. So my questions on this topic are still unanswered. I understand online education is a great thing, I agree, but you can do it in any schedule. I understand that there are state mandates, but I sat with people this weekend from Vernon, Torrington, Plainfield, New Fairfield. They're all in a block schedule, and not even a modified block, a block schedule. And state mandates are not being ignored by all these towns. So somehow it's being implemented. So my questions that I have are not answered. Questions that seem not germane to this issue or topics have been brought forth. We are going to have a lot of serious other questions ahead of us, like facilities, budgets, and the Common Core. And I don't want to see us undergo a similar process with these really important topics. The Common Core, by the way, is fantastic. It is. I urge all of you to support your principals and your teachers and give them a break, help them get it implemented, because it's going to be fantastic academically. But it's going to, the testing will change, and what the Common Core, as Ms. Swanson said, it's really going to test a deeper level of knowledge. So I think that more people are probably going to look into how to get the time to get that deeper exploration. So I would not be surprised if other area schools that have been on the traditional block might move to a hybrid. Westport's going to be kind enough to send me their 15-year plan. They have one. I'm interested to see what it looks like, what they have in it. I'm not sure how this is going to work out. I encourage you all to keep engaged, though. Well, you know, our email addresses are on the site. Please, as this is implemented, please talk to us. Keep everyone apprised of how it's working or not working, because this board has the power to make this change, and this board has the power to make other changes. And if you are unhappy with the way that any of us represent you, remember, you need to vote. You need to get out there and vote, and that includes, you know, about me. So I encourage you all to be active, continue to be active, and I appreciate the fact that you're all so involved. Most school systems are just dying to have parents as involved as ours. And we're lucky. Thank you.
Well, I'm a middle child, so it's easy for me to say I agree with everything that's been said. But I'm just not convinced yet. And I do think, I am concerned that we think the be-all, end-all of all our woes are going to be the changing of the schedule. I'm not convinced. There's a great argument for that, but I'm not convinced. Some of that is the small cohort of kids that we have taking CAP tests too, of sometimes mixed abilities. But certainly we could do better. I'm just not convinced yet, though I see everyone's good points. And first off, I'd rather this not be considered a vote of confidence for our superintendent. She's leading us, she's giving us a plan, but it's up to us also to have our own independent ideas and our own way of getting to perhaps that plan. But I just think I need time. Once again, I was on the board when we started Block. It took a lot of time and some extremely good soul searching. And all of the things that were discussed here were brought up and thoroughly explored. I am not convinced that we're doing enough. I'd like to see maybe a study of a comprehensive schedule change that would include the middle school into 12th grade. I'd just like to see all that happen. And I'm just thinking that we're moving too fast, and maybe in the right direction, but too fast. And I personally think that there's nothing going to be lost here. And it's not kicking the can, it's being thorough. To ask this board in our education committee to study the pros and the cons, and perhaps arbitrarily at the end of the spring break, or perhaps in February, come back with our findings and say, yes, absolutely, and this is why. Or maybe not. And I think there's modifications within the block that must be made. I'd like to see that. I really would like to see what we can do with our existing, and maybe we should throw out the microwave. So I need time. And this is not a plebiscite on what we're doing as a board, and it's not a vote of confidence with the superintendent. I think we're being led into some very interesting territory. And I want to make sure once we do something draconian, it's for the right reason. So I am going to arbitrarily make a motion that we instruct the education committee of the board, which is the full board, to study this more thoroughly with the guidance and leadership of our superintendent, and come back with a decision that we can vote on. I'll be arbitrary, by the end of February 2013, perhaps to implement in the next academic year.
I'll second that motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to refer the matter to the Education Committee for further study and investigation by the board, perhaps with a resolution, I think you said by the end of February 2013. Did I state that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Is there any discussion on the motion? I'm sorry.
What implications would that have budgetarily if we were pushing something out to February?
That's what I'd like to know.
I wouldn't be able to. I would have to do a budget based on what we have right now. We would not have time in the high school budget, high school schedule for teachers to meet, which is going to be very stressful for them when they have to deal with the new teacher evaluation program. There are going to be teachers who are going to be rated on test scores and assessments when they've only taught curriculum for maybe 4 weeks to kids who are taking state tests. They will be rated on that data. We will not be providing tiered interventions like we're supposed to be. We are, everything here is the reason why we're doing this. I do want to say one thing to the board. I came to you in October with this plan and said, I am not moving forward unless you support it. Because if you don't support it, I don't want to put myself out there because I know it's going to be very stressful. And everyone at that time said, absolutely, we support it. Everyone. Everyone said that. Not one person said, hold on, let's talk, let's this, let's that. But it's your prerogative. I'm beholden to you and to the community. If you decide you want to look into this more, that's fine. But the reason we're doing it now is for budgetary reasons, for Power School reasons, and to give everybody an opportunity to make it work before next year. The later we go on, and if we do implement it for this next school year, that means then you are totally cutting down the amount of time where people can plan, where people can get involved, okay, and all that kind of stuff. And when we talk about a hybrid, and I know, Valerie, you haven't been here for the many, many presentations, although we're not calling this a hybrid, in my mind, when you are the principal of a school and you can link 2 classes together, that is a hybrid. That's what a hybrid is, okay? But I didn't say that because in a hybrid, in the definition of a lot of literature, that's not what it was. But again, Mrs. Gallo, Mrs. DeBrito have every opportunity to put classes together if they want to, if they don't want to. We haven't even dealt with the instructional piece of this new schedule. And time is really a variable. Time used to be very fixed in education. It's now a variable. So what does that mean? Teachers flip classrooms, which means you have kids watch some videos at home, Khan Academy, a YouTube, a TED.com. They take notes on it, they come in. So now you've done some of that prep work at home. We need to move into the 21st century. I can only tell you my expertise from 30 years of being, an educator, and my last 6 years of being a high school principal. And I can I'm telling you, from someone who has looked at this system with an objective eye, there are major problems and flaws in this system. We have students who are being assessed in geometry who don't take geometry. We have students who are taking geometry and bio second semester of their sophomore year, and they are 4 weeks into a curriculum and they're being assessed on that. And that is because of the block, no other reason. So that is not okay with me. But if it's okay with all of you and you want to think about it and talk about it some more, you know, I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. But, you know, it's just frustrating because I would not have come to this point if I didn't feel that everybody supported the decision when I brought it to your attention in the beginning of October.
Greg, speaking to the motion.
Yes, I think to delay it at this point for further study is both unnecessary and unwise. I think it's an excuse to do nothing, to have another year where we drift, and we are drifting closer and closer to that perfect storm and confluence of events, and we are getting further behind when we need to be pushing these schools forward now. And so I'm afraid that I can't support a motion to further study it into February at the risk of blowing the budget, at the risk of sidelining the proposal for another year. And to what end? At the end of that period of time, we are going to discover exactly what? That the same things the superintendent has seen for the block schedule are the same problems she sees in 2 months. The same people that are opposed to it in 2 months now are going to be opposed in 2 months, and the people that support it now are going to support it in 2 months, and nothing's going to change. And I really think we'd be wasting time, opportunity, and trying a lot of people's patience and thinking we should come back and look at this again 2 months from now. It isn't going to happen. It's just going to be punting it down the road. Once again, another Region 12, kick the can down the road and hope that some future board will deal with it better than we have. And that's why we're still talking about consolidation 20 years later, and 15 years later, and 5 years later, and 10 years later, and we still talk about the same topics. I have had board members, people who've served on this board 20-something years ago, come up to me and say, I can't believe you're still talking about the same things that we talked about 20 years ago. I said, yeah. I said, what did you guys do about it? We didn't do anything. We kicked it on down the can, down the road to you. And that's what we're going to do again here. I think we ought to move on. We ought to take a vote on this motion, and I'm going to move the question on it.
All right. The question has been moved. All those in favor of?
Could you repeat the wording of the motion, please?
Well, hold on, there's a motion to move the question, which means to stop debate.
All right.
There's no debate on the motion to move the question. So all those in favor of moving the question, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, so the motion to move the question passes. So the motion on the table is to refer the issue of the proposal made by the superintendent to our education committee for further study, with a goal of bringing it back toward the board, to the board for a decision by the end of February. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Any abstain? All right, the motion fails. Are there any other motions?
We have a motion on the table.
There's no-
Oh, no,
there's no-
well, then I'll make a motion.
Yes?
I move that we approve the flexible schedule to begin 2013-2014 school year in the manner outlined by the superintendent.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We've had some discussion. Is there any further discussion, Val? I'm sorry, Alan?
I have a question. We don't often direct questions directly to each other, but some of the things that Kelly said were very strange. First of all, it should have been apparent that a lot of us have done a lot of work on this. So it's not really a good thing to say that the board has done no work on this. But the other thing is you had a lot of questions that you put forward. You sit on this board. I had a lot of questions too, and I asked the superintendent and she answered them. You didn't ask, did you ask the superintendent?
I'm very concerned because I didn't get the answers to the questions I asked. I got answers to questions I did not ask. And I'm not sure if that's because the questions are not understood and can't be explained back to me by the person I asked. I did not get the data I was looking for. when I came with detailed questions to her in conversation, I got told about Power School. I'm getting apples and oranges in my conversation.
Why don't you ask me your questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
Well, I'm not prepared to do that right now.
Well, no, you did. You asked the question.
Hold on, one at a time.
I heard it.
It's Alan's got the floor. Alan?
It's just that you had a lot of questions you asked, things
I
you were
have
concerned
many,
about.
many questions.
I know, but all the ones that you just listed, which, you know, and believe me, I'm not saying, well, you know, you're the minority here and blah, 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 and you stop up tipping the boat. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you have these questions and they haven't been answered sufficiently, I'm confused because mine were. And so if you have them now and you were able to list them, you know, I don't want to play back the tape or something, but start at the top and ask a few of them to the superintendent right now so she can answer you.
Most of my questions are a little more in depth than yes, no, or a brief explanation. For example, I'll give you one of them. I would like to know specifically, before we make a decision like this, which courses are working really well in block?
Humanities.
And which are not. That's not necessarily true. My daughter's friends sit in the back of my car and it's like taxi cab confessional. And they'll tell me this one's not working or this one is. I'd like to know from the superintendent and from the administrators which classes are working better. I mean, which specific, not just humanities. Which are working and why they're working. And which are not working and why they're not working. I think that's a very basic question.
There are 2 points to that, and we've talked about this before. There is the instructional piece, which I'm not going to address in front of everybody, and because certain teachers do things better, certain teachers are more successful in planning and delivery of instruction and engagement and rigor, etc. So that's one piece, and that was what you were talking about. But in the block, when we talk about the block, and what works and what doesn't. From my visiting of classrooms, from great discussions with Mrs. Gallo and Mrs. Ouellette, the humanities program is very successful. Okay, the teachers work very well in a co-teaching model where they integrate the language arts curriculum and the social studies curriculum, and they embed it in engaging activities, technology, etc. Places where it doesn't work successfully. Now this is just the block piece. This is not instructionally. The block piece. The math doesn't work successfully in the block. Okay, you have students who, as I said, don't have geometry, have off from math for a year. Science does not work in the block. You have students who take 1 semester of science as a 9th grader, then again as a 10th grader. There's no continuous instruction. World language has issues in the block. My goal is to eventually make world language 6 to 12. So maybe in 6th grade, it's an exploration, and in 7th grade, they start with Spanish and French 1. Then 8th grade, 2. And work their way up. And so that means that absolutely we can mix and mingle some of the high school and middle school kids for maybe world language. Band is a problem, not instructionally, block-wise. There are 50 kids in the block, in the band, only 20 kids are in the class. I am not sitting here saying that the new schedule is going to solve all those problems, because any schedule, there are going to be conflicts. What I'm saying is this schedule will provide more opportunities for less conflicts, okay? And will also allow students to be able to excel in the curriculum because they'll be on the same schedule. So that's...
I understand the broad outlines.
Okay.
You have explained that several times to me, to the board, to the audience, but I'm looking for a little more rigorous level of detail. I'm also looking for a little more level of rigorous detail on the actual schedule implementation. And again, this is the kind of thing people worked on for a year in Simsbury or the other towns that worked on.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I really have encouraged the board to do this now is because I don't want to micromanage this initiative. I need the framework. I just, as a superintendent, need the framework, okay? So that I can say, this is what we need in music, this is what we need in world language, etc., etc. I have given the power, the permission, whatever you want to call, to Mrs. Gallo, Mrs. DeBrito to make it work for them with the input from kids and parents and teachers.
I feel like we're being Pelosi, that we're being told, vote now, and later on you'll get to know what it looks like.
Alan, do you have anything further?
I don't know.
No, Alan.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, Alan had the floor.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure he's finished. Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Valerie.
Well, I mean, we were encouraged to ask questions. It's my impression, my feeling, and I might be wrong, that we're going to have to either hire new teachers or expand FTEs. Is that the
Absolutely
case?
not.
How will we be able to make our offerings with every kid in every classroom for 7 periods without more capital?
Well, virtual high school is going to allow us to offer a lot of different classes to kids, okay, under the auspices of one teacher. I am proposing to the board that we go from 28 to 25 credits. If that happens, that's something to consider. The middle school and the high school, there is a lot of ineffective use of resources, and people cannot be shared because of that. So I'm hoping that that is going to save some resources.
And you mentioned that the board then would vote for, now our graduation requirement is 28 units, credits, and then you'll ask the board to vote on 25 instead.
Well, it's in front of policy, at the policy committee.
It's not before the board tonight.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that has to follow.
Yes.
Doesn't have to.
Doesn't have to follow. The schedule, you can get 28 credits, but the state recommendation, the state right now is at 22. The state is requiring people to go to 25. I'm all about providing opportunities and options for kids. If you want to have your child, or your child wants 28 high school credits, they have every opportunity to do that in this new flexible schedule. I would like your child to have 25 credits and maybe 15 college credits, if that's what they'd like. I want to provide more opportunities.
And if I could ask a couple more questions, how do we handle the senior project in the senior year without the benefit of a block of time?
Well, they still have 57 minutes for a whole year. It's still time. I don't, you know.
But the senior project, as I recall, from my child who graduated 2 years ago, there is actually in the senior year a block that is devoted to senior project.
Yes. So
And
now it would
there
be
would
a
not-
period. It would be a 57-minute period for a year.
Okay.
And there would be enough time. You know, a lot of the senior projects, as from what I can see, is kids do things independently too. They do some report, they do some activity, they do a fundraising. The problem with the senior projects, just to be honest, is that, yes, you're on the forefront, it's fabulous, but the state now has mandated a capstone project that goes grades 6 to 12 that ends in a culminating activity. We don't do that here. So, you know, although we've done a great senior project, and it's wonderful, and it's on the forefront, and yes, you were pioneers, absolutely. It's not in line with the new secondary success plan. Okay, so that has to be morphed a little bit. So, you know, there's just a.
Freshman class does have that right now. The academy class has
Hey,
that.
ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm not engaging in discussion.
Excuse me?
This is a Board of
Oh,
Education
excuse me.
meeting. Is there anything further, Val? I don't mean to cut you
Well,
off, but
and
I
once
just can't
again,
do it.
this is just why I need more time. I'm not necessarily against the plan or for the plan, I just need some information, because I do think the impact on senior project might be relevant. And I also think that I'd like to see something more comprehensive, because you're talking about a 6 to 12 capstone, you're talking about changes that are going to be mandated in the middle school, and I see us leaning back to the middle school schedule instead of having the middle school catch up to where we were. But I just need more time.
Okay. Alan?
I just want to briefly say, Teresa DeVito explained that part to me, Valerie, last week. The reason we're going towards the middle school as opposed to the other way around is that on page 10 of the Connecticut plan, there are requirements for course offerings in English, social studies, mathematics, science, art, music, physical education, technology, health, and exploratory electives that may, among other courses, include world language. There's not enough time if we were to block the middle school to manage the teaching of all of these required study areas, which is why in order to coordinate middle school and high school and create that 6-12 confluency, we have to go the other way.
Thank you.
Kelly?
Just briefly on the budgeting issue, that's another thing. I'd like to see a grid framework drawn up, certainly between now and February. There would have been time to do that with an example of what kind of staffing, given the assets we have now, could be arranged, and whether we would need more full-time teachers or more paras. And we could take a look at that and say, it's great, it's cost saving, or, oh, it's not so great, it's going to cost us more. I just don't know how that will look, and we're going to have to just wait and knock on wood and find out. I will say that the Bethel High School traditional schedule has a student-teacher ratio of 11:1. Our student-teacher ratio is 10:1. So there's not a lot of difference.
This really has nothing to do with Bethel High School, I just want to say.
I'm working with what you're familiar with, because you're saying what you are familiar.
Yeah, but that was a different schedule, it was a different school, a lot of differences.
But a traditional schedule like that doesn't always have a lot of cost savings. So I don't know if anyone's looking for that. That's not my primary reason for wanting more study time, but I'm curious as to how that will work out as well.
You know, if you look at this, I just want to remind you, it really doesn't, the main reasons have very little to do with cost. The main reasons have to do with equity for kids, making sure everyone has opportunities. When I mean opportunities, I'm not talking about AP and virtual high school. I'm talking about students who are supposed to be receiving interventions, okay, in a tiered way so that we fill in the gaps. I'm talking about teachers at the high school who need time to be able to really understand what it means to look at formative data, inform your instruction, plan around that, work towards the new teacher evaluation. There's a lot of opportunities that this schedule does not afford us. And it's going to be fine. I mean, I know that everybody's very upset and nervous and change. This is going to really be fine. I have no doubt that Mrs. Gallo and Mr. Brito are going to make this happen. I really have no concerns about it. My concern is that people are getting some people are getting a bad taste in their mouth, we'll put it that way, about me and my leadership skills and style, and I can understand that, but I was brought in here to really help you move forward, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Is there anything else? There's a motion on the floor to approve flexible schedule to begin 2013-2014 school year. Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I have one thing.
Yes.
When can we have a little bit more, if we approve it, when can we have a more detailed look of what it will look like?
You know, I have to, if we approve it, I would assume by mid-January, maybe the second meeting in January, I can really give you a really good handle on all of the extra non-academic people and get a handle on that.
And it is open for tweaking
It's
other
open
than the 57
absolutely.
minutes?
It's open for tweaking. If the middle and the high school principal, if they can follow these guidelines and they are on the same schedule, and I want to say one other thing, D1 is staying, advisory is staying, they're making schedules for that, they're going to be on the same times at the same days, but that's all in here. Absolutely, they, you know, and I've said that to Mrs. Gallo and Mr. Brito on many of occasions.
Pat, what is D1?
D1 is a period at the middle school where the students have about 30 minutes a day to either meet with teachers, go to the media center, get some extra support, make up tests, do some homework.
Flexible time.
It's flexible time.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly.
I would really welcome that kind of report in January. I think our citizens, as you've seen, are very engaged. And in their private lives, many of them are expected daily to make presentations with quite a lot of detail and data. And they're expected to cost out complex projects. And I think all they're asking from us is the same kind of level of rigor that is expected of them in their daily lives. So we can meet that need in January. I think it will be helpful, at least. And then if there are other issues, are you open to discussing any of them in terms of?
As long as the middle and the high school are on the same schedule, okay? That's number one. And that we are able to address the issues of continuous math and science for at least 9th and 10th graders and world language. The high school has time to meet on a regular basis.
The teachers.
And that the teachers, and that we can implement SRBI. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be a start. Then I'm okay, and they all know that. They all know that, and they all know that.
All right, is there anything else? All right, then there's a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Any opposed? Raise your hand, please. Any abstained? Right, the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you all for your passion.
Thank you.
Next item is item 7, to consider and if appropriate approve changes to the 2012-2013 school calendar. Dr. Costello.
Yes, due to the Hurricane Sandy, we lost 3 school days, so I am asking the board to put back February 19th, which is the Tuesday after Washington's Day, back into the schedule calendar as a day for students. I did not take back Martin Luther King Day, did not take that PD Day, and I did not take this Wednesday, but I am taking the Tuesday. If it's good with you, certainly any students who cannot be here will be excused, and we will make sure they get the missed work. So that would be, then we would be behind 2 days so far that we'd still have to make up.
So this 19th is...
It's the 19th of February, it's the Tuesday. Everyone would still have off the Monday.
Alan.
So, that was my...
Oh, I just wanted to point out that you can't take away Martin Luther King Day.
I know, but we could have made it a PD day and had the kids come on Friday, yes. But I decided not to do that. So...
Larry?
This is in anticipation of a standard kind of snowy winter.
Well, we're already behind 2 days. So yes, so right now, as it goes, we're adding 2 days on to the end of the school year. And then if more days come, just trying to be proactive. I mean, last year, you did it for many days. I think you had Veterans Day and a whole bunch of days. And so this year, I'm really just, and the reason I like that day, it's not a holiday, so it's not going to impact any of the unions who have that holiday. And
just kind of put in this.
Mike.
So just the last day then you're proposing would be June 13th?
I lost my calendar.
No, June 14th is the last.
No, right, June 14th is right now the last day, but right now, we're going till the 18th, but I'm not proposing anything like that right now.
Okay, so your proposal is that our last day be?
No, my proposal is that we go to school on February 19th.
Okay.
That's the only proposal.
Okay, you're not adding any days to June?
Not right now, because right now, we have 2 days that we have to make up. Right now, we have 3 days we have to make up. I'm proposing that February 19th be one of them, knowing that we still have 2 days that we have to make up. I'm not making any proposal on that yet. We'll see how the winter goes.
I guess I'm just curious, because last year, didn't we add days in June? And I'm just wondering why you decided not to do that this year.
Well, I just, we still are gonna add days in June possibly, and the only reason is I just feel like that day, it's not a holiday. You know, it's an extra day, and it just was a good day to add. The administrators felt that also that it was a good day, and the other thing is that I'm a strong believer, if you can get days in, you know, earlier in the school year, they're much more impactful than adding days in June when it's very hot in the schools and such, and plus it gives us an extra day before testing, which is always helpful.
All right, Fran?
So looking at the schedule the way it is now, we get back February, the February 19th.
Right.
And there is no snow, we have no snow for the rest of the year, and it's beautiful like it is now.
Right.
We'll get out on June 18th.
Right.
So we really have 3 more snow days to play with before we have to come back and visit the schedule. The 19th,
Yes.
20th, 21st.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. From what was said here, that you would rather go till June 21st, and then once you hit June 21st, start taking away from spring
April
break.
vacation, yeah.
But we're not there yet.
No,
We do
all
have-
I'm doing is one thing. I'm asking you to put back February 19th.
Greg,
It's a school day.
Hold on, please. One at a time.
Yeah, I just like, for the purpose of getting it, I'd like to move that we adopt this change to the school calendar as outlined by the superintendent to add the
Second.
19th.
Moved it- I'm sorry, who seconded it?
I did.
Valerie seconded. Moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adding February 19, 2013 to the school schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. Items 8, opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items. I'd ask for the same thing if anybody wants to address this. Anyone? No? All right, hearing no one, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.